Today on Nerd of the Rings, we're covering the complete lives and travels of Merry and Pippin. This is in honor of my upcoming interview with Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan, premiering here on the channel at the link in the description. Now there's a lot to get to, so we're going to hit the highlights in the lives of these two heroic hobbits. Meriadoc Brandybuck is born in Buckland in 2982 of the Third Age. He is the son of Saradoc Brandybuck and Esmeralda Took. Through Frodo's mother, who was a Brandybuck, Merry is Frodo's first cousin once removed. After Frodo's parents die in 2980, Frodo would go to live with his Brandybuck relatives in Brandy Hall, the huge central smile, or hobbit hole, in Buckland, which was the ancestral home of the Brandybuck family. Frodo would live there with Merry and his other relatives from the age of 12 to the age of 21, when Bilbo invites him to live in Bag End as his heir. 1 year later, in the spring of 2990, Peregrine Took is born to Eglantine Banks and Merry's uncle, Paladin Took II. In addition to being Merry's cousin, Pippin is also related to Frodo as his first cousin once removed. Now, we don't know a great deal about Merry and Pippin prior to Bilbo's 111th birthday party. One nugget that we do know, however, is that sometime around the year 3000, Merry sees Bilbo become invisible in order to avoid the Sackville Bagginses. He manages to follow Bilbo's path and sees him reappear and place something golden into his pocket. His curiosity piqued, Merry would always keep an eye out for strange things with Bilbo, and would even go as far as to take a peek at Bilbo's diary in Bag End. On September 22nd, 3001, Bilbo hosts his long-expected party. After Bilbo makes his grand disappearance, Merry comes to suspect that Frodo will soon follow. Of course, this would be over a period of 17 years, but by April 3018, the evidence becomes even greater. It is in this month that Gandalf returns to the Shire and confirms Bilbo's ring is the one. Merry notices that Frodo has secret talks with Gandalf and begins to say farewell to his favorite places. Frodo sells Bag End and feigns a move to Crickhollow to hide his leaving the Shire. However, Merry had confided his suspicions with a group of Frodo's friends. This group of conspirators, Peregrine Took, Samwise Gamgee, and Fredegar Fatty Bolger, would happen to be the same hobbits Frodo would enlist to help him to move to Crickhollow. Frodo, Sam, and Pippin make their way toward Crickhollow, having close calls with the Nazgul who are searching the Shire, and meeting the High Elves led by Gildor along the way. Meanwhile, Merry and Fatty are preparing for the arrival at Frodo's new house, having taken a wagon of Frodo's possessions earlier. As Frodo comes to Farmer Maggot's, Merry begins to worry that his friends may be lost, and crosses Buckleberry Ferry to search for them. Fortunately, he encounters Farmer Maggot with his wagon, where Frodo, Sam, and Pippin are hiding. After having dinner at Crickhollow, Frodo plans to tell his friends that he will be leaving the Shire. At this point, the conspirators reveal that they have been aware of his plans for some time, and that they will accompany him. "You can trust us to stick to you through thick and thin, to the bitter end. And you can trust us to keep any secret of yours, closer than you keep it yourself. But you cannot trust us to let you face trouble alone and go off without a word. We are your friends, Frodo." Fatty Bolger would remain behind, living in Frodo's house and even wearing Frodo's clothes in order to keep up appearances that Frodo was indeed living in Crickhollow. The four hobbits make their way through the Old Forest and come across Old Man Willow, who captures Merry and Pippin with his roots. Fortunately, they are saved by Tom Bombadil, who gives them food and rest at his home. As they leave the Old Forest on September 29th, they come across the Barrow Downs, where they are captured by a Barrow-wight. Fortunately, Frodo summons Tom Bombadil, who saves them once again. Tom gives the hobbits daggers of Westerness, which are found within the Barrow. These daggers, made by the Dunedain, were made specifically for the war against the Witch King around 1600 years earlier. Finally free of the perils of the Old Forest and the Barrow Downs, the hobbits make their way to Bree and stay at the Prancing Pony. While staying at the inn, Pippin begins to tell the story of Bilbo's birthday party and disappearance. This leads Frodo to begin to sing The Man in the Moon Stayed Up Too Late, to prevent Pippin from revealing anything about the ring. During the song, Frodo falls off the table and the ring slips onto his finger. That night, the Nazgul come to Bree. As the others meet with Strider, Merry goes out for a walk, where he sees a black rider. He attempts to follow the mysterious rider, but it disappears and Merry is overtaken by the Black Breath. Fortunately, before the riders could harm him, Nob, a hobbit working at the Prancing Pony, finds Merry and returns him to the inn. Merry and Pippin travel with Sam, Frodo, and Strider to Weathertop, where they are attacked by the Nazgul, and on to Rivendell. Unlike in the films, Sam is the only one to eavesdrop at the Council of Elrond on October 25th. It wouldn't be until much later, on December 18th, when Merry and Pippin would make their voices heard. Elrond, noting that the hope of their errand lies in secrecy and speed, chooses to appoint a group of 7 to accompany Frodo and Sam. He names Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn, but states that the remaining 2 are yet to be chosen. Pippin, dismayed at being left behind, says that he and Merry want to go as well. Elrond is hesitant, but at Gandalf's encouragement, he appoints Merry and Pippin as the final members of the Fellowship of the Ring. The Fellowship departs Rivendell on December 25th, and after a failed attempt to pass Caradhras and a nighttime attack by wolves, they make their way to Moria. It is here where we get the first real taste of Pippin's knack for annoying Gandalf. "What are you going to do then?" asked Pippin, undaunted by the wizard's bristling brows. "Knock on the doors with your head, Peregrine Took," said Gandalf. "But if that does not shatter them, and I am allowed a little peace from foolish questions, I will seek for the opening words." Later, Pippin's natural curiosity overtakes his judgment when he drops a rock down a well as the Fellowship is traveling through Moria, leading to the sounds of drums in the deep. "What's that?" cried Gandalf. He was relieved when Pippin confessed what he had done, but he was angry, and Pippin could see his eye glinting. "Fool of a Took," he growled. "This is a serious journey, not a hobbit walking party. Throw yourself in next time and you will be no further nuisance. Now be quiet." The following day, they would come to the Chamber of Mazar Bul and the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, where they would lose the Grey Wizard. The Fellowship makes its way to Lothlorien, arriving January 22nd, where they would rest for nearly a month. On February 16th, they set out, bidding farewell to Lorien. At their parting, Galadriel gifts Merry and Pippin each with a silver belt. The Fellowship makes its way south on the Anduin River, passing the Argonath and camping at Parth Galen on February 25th. The following day, the company is waylaid by a group made of orcs from Isengard, Mordor, and the North. As they are searching for Frodo, Merry and Pippin run directly into a group of orcs. Boromir arrives and attempts to rescue the halflings, but a group of the mighty Uruk-hai arrive and shoot him with arrows. Merry and Pippin are carried off, Boromir is slain, and the Fellowship is broken. The following day, as the orcs carry Merry and Pippin across the plains of Rohan, Pippin runs away from the orcs, not in hopes of escape, but in hopes of leaving a sign. He leaves his elven brooch and his own footprints off the trampled path of the orcs, giving Aragorn a clear sign that he and Merry were still alive. 2 days later, the orc company would arrive at the outskirts of Fangorn Forest. Thanks to an attack by Eomer's Rohirrim, they are able to escape into Fangorn Forest, where they meet Treebeard. Over the coming days, they discuss the state of events with Treebeard, drink Ent Draft, and attend the Entmoot. The Ent Draft causes the pair to grow to the point where they would be the tallest hobbits in the history of the Shire. During the Entmoot, they are introduced to Quickbeam, one of the most hasty Ents, who had already made up his mind about going to battle Saruman. After a time in Quickbeam's house, Merry and Pippin march with the Ents in the attack on Isengard on the night of March 2nd. In the end, Isengard would be flooded, Saruman's servants destroyed, and the Tower of Orthanc under siege. In the aftermath of the battle, as the hobbits are sitting upon their field of victory, Gandalf arrives in great hurry and need. Pippin recounts. He halted just by us and looked down at us. "Gandalf," I said at last. But my voice was only a whisper. Did he say, "Hello, Pippin, this is a pleasant surprise"? No, indeed. He said, "Get up, you tomfool of a took. Where in the name of wonder in all this ruin is Treebeard? I want him, quick!" Treebeard agrees to send the Huorns to Helm's Deep, helping to secure Rohan's ultimate victory on the morning of March 4th. The following day, Merry and Pippin are reunited with most of the Fellowship, as Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli accompany Theoden to the parley with Saruman at Isengard. In a moment of anger, Wormtongue throws the Palantir from the Tower of Orthanc, which Gandalf promptly takes. That night, Pippin's curiosity once again gets the better of him. He steals the Palantir as Gandalf sleeps and is seen by Sauron. Gandalf awakes and a fell beast flies overhead, on its way to Orthanc. Gandalf, realizing that war is imminent, takes Pippin and rides for Minas Tirith. Gandalf also realizes the opportunity this situation has presented. Sauron, seeing Pippin in the Palantir, has mistakenly assumed that Pippin is the halfling carrying the One Ring, and that he is currently at Isengard with Saruman. So long as Sauron believes Pippin has the ring, he will not be looking for Frodo. As Gandalf and Pippin make the 4-day journey to Minas Tirith, Merry goes with Aragorn and Theoden first to Helm's Deep, then to Dunharrow. It is during his day at Helm's Deep that Merry is moved to offer his service to King Theoden. After arriving in Minas Tirith on March 9th, Pippin would make a pledge of his own, swearing himself to Denethor's service in payment of his debt to Boromir. In his first act of service, Denethor orders Pippin to tell him all about his journey, especially concerning Boromir. Despite Pippin's attempt at keeping the ring, Frodo, and Aragorn secret, he could not fully hide all these from Denethor, for Denethor was both wise and perceptive. Meanwhile, in Rohan, Merry joins the muster of the Rohirrim, but is told by Theoden when they stop at Edoras that the time has come for him to stay behind, for he cannot keep up on a pony, and no rider can bear the extra weight to carry him. In this moment, Merry is taken by Durnhelm, a disguise of Éowyn, and they make their way to Gondor on March 11th. During their travels, the Rohirrim in their company, including their leader, Elfhelm, ignored Merry's presence, allowing him to proceed toward battle. As the Rohirrim ride south, Minas Tirith prepares for war. Pippin is taught the lesser passwords and takes his place as a guard of the Citadel. In his training, he becomes friends with another guard, Baragond, and his son, Bergil. The people of Gondor are amazed by this halfling. Soon, Pippin is referred to as Prince of the Halflings, and wild rumors spread that he has pledged 5,000 halflings to the defense of Minas Tirith. Merry and Pippin would each play significant roles in the Battle of Pelennor Fields. During the battle, Pippin would help save Faramir's life, while Merry would save Éowyn's. After Faramir returns to the city suffering under the Black Breath, Denethor turns to despair and attempts to burn himself and Faramir alive. Were it not for Pippin instructing Baragond to protect Faramir, he likely would have perished while Pippin searched for Gandalf. Instead, Baragond kills 3 soldiers attempting to light the pyre and holds out until Gandalf and Pippin arrive, saving Faramir's life. Meanwhile, on the plains of Pelennor, the Witch King mortally wounds Theoden. Éowyn reveals her true identity, standing between her uncle and the Lord of the Nazgul. As the Witch King prepares to strike a fatal blow to Éowyn, Merry stabs him in his calf with the Barrow Blade, the dagger of Westerness forged to fight the Witch King, making the Lord of the Nazgul vulnerable to attack. Éowyn strikes the Witch King in the head, ending him once and for all. Éowyn collapses, falling under the Black Breath. Merry speaks to Theoden one last time, as the king tells his esquire to think of him in days of peace as he sits with his pipe. Merry would soon also fall prey to the effects of the Black Breath, and would only be healed when Aragorn enters the Houses of Healing, where he calls Faramir, Éowyn, and Merry back from the darkness. Unlike the films, Merry remains behind in the Houses of Healing, while Pippin travels with Aragorn and the others to the Black Gate. There, at the Battle of the Morannon, Pippin saves Baragon's life by killing a troll that had charged their ranks. The troll, however, falls on top of him. Pippin would be pinned under the troll until after the battle, when Gimli recognizes a hobbit foot sticking out from beneath the troll and pulls him out. In the coming weeks and months, the hobbits would celebrate the destruction of the ring and the final victory over Sauron. They attend the coronation of King Elessar, his wedding to Arwen, and travel to Edoras for the funeral of Theoden. After stops at Isengard, Rivendell, and Bree, they finally return to the Shire, where they find it overtaken by ruffians. Merry and Pippin, soldiers of Rohan and Gondor, lead the hobbits in attempting to retake the Shire. Pippin travels to Tookland and brings back 100 hobbits to fight in the Battle of Bywater. During this same battle, Merry uses a special Horn of Rohan, gifted to him by Éomer and Éowyn, to summon the hobbits and rouse them to victory. After their home is retaken and Saruman and Wormtongue are slain, the hobbits would go on to play important roles in the future of the Shire. In the 4th year of the Fourth Age, Pippin marries Diamond of Longcleave, and 3 years later they have a son, who they name Faramir. Faramir Took would go on to marry Goldilocks Gamgee, the 3rd daughter of Sam and Rose. Merry would marry Fatty Bolger's sister, Estella, and become the Master of Buckland, inheriting the role from his father. Merry would go on to write many academic works, such as Herblore of the Shire, Old Words and Names in the Shire, and The Reckoning of Years. In 13 of the Fourth Age, Pippin becomes the Thane of the Shire, the leader of the Took clan. In this same year, Aragorn makes the roles of Master of Buckland, Thane of the Shire, and the Mayor of Mickle Delving, which at this time is now Samwise, into official counselors to the king. 2 years later, Aragorn visits the Northern Realm and meets the hobbits at the Brandywine Bridge, following his own decree that none of the big folk should enter the Shire. In 31 of the Fourth Age, King Elessar gifts the lands of the Westmarch officially to the hobbits of the Shire. Pippin appoints Fastred, Sam's son-in-law, to be the first warden of Westmarch. Decades later, in the year 63, Merry, now 102, and Pippin, now 94, leave the Shire for the last time, after Merry receives an invitation from King Éomer. They pass their roles as Thane of the Shire and Master of Buckland on to their sons and travel to Edoras. That fall, Éomer would die at 93 years old. The friends then travel to Gondor, where they would live out their remaining days with Aragorn. At their passing, Merry and Pippin are laid to rest in Rathdinnen. When Aragorn dies nearly 60 years later, Merry and Pippin are placed beside their friend in their final resting place, among the kings and stewards of Gondor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. As always, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who make this channel possible, including Tom DeBombadil 19, Gail Elizabeth, Jim Limber Davis, Sky Carcass, Salim Rahman, Smorzerk, Zetrock, Gimilcod, Debbie, Grand Strategy Nerd, Chief 40123, Mid-Earth Wellness, and the Dark-Haired One. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.